Coworker's Meltdown, Screams, Fights, and Scandal, caught on tape. This story takes place a few years ago when I was working security for a baseball park. I wasn't one of the security guards checking bags or showing people seats, though game day security. My department was 24-hour security, handling mostly guarding restricted areas, watching cameras, and keeping an eye out for the emergencies in the park. Both departments have their own boss, with one boss above them overseeing security in general. It was a really cool job, especially considering how beautiful the park was. When I would work night shifts, I'd usually be the only one walking around the park, and we had such beautiful views of the city, and even a riverwalk that was part of our patrol. Unfortunately, most of my coworkers were sexist middle-aged men. At the time of this story, I was 20 years old, 5'2", 112 pounds. I'd actually already quit once before for sexual harassment. A coworker would start random conversations with me and insist I should work with him just to spend as much time as he could with me. Then behind my back was insisting to everyone I wanted him, as well as making comments about the size of my chest and insisting women with larger breasts were more sexual. It was hard enough being in a position where I needed to maintain some respect and authority in order to keep people safe without being treated like a streetwalker every day. I tried telling my first boss, who we will call Frank, and he said he'd talk to him, but it never stopped, and then eventually Frank was transferred. I found out basically as soon as he left that he'd been saying all the same things. He never actually had any respect for me as security, which was a little devastating, but I at least knew I'd done good work. At this point, his superior, Big Boss, took over, so I tried to approach him to get the coworker to stop. He said, and I quote, "Well, as a woman in a male-dominant profession, you really should expect this sort of thing." So I quit. However, Big Boss decided to go into early retirement later that year, and the coworker made a sexual comment to someone from HR by mistake, so he ended up fired. When my second boss, who we will call Satan for my amusement, took over for Frank, someone mentioned my name and what good work I'd done in the past, so he sent me an email, and I happened to be looking for a second job at the time, so joined back up. Unfortunately, I began having issues with the new boss fairly quickly. There was no pretending to respect me. Satan started in Frank's position, but because Big Boss retired so soon after, he ended up getting the promotion easily. For a long time, there technically was no head of out department, as he was technically doing two jobs, and he was very rarely in the office. This meant he was very strict about everything, and getting anywhere required showing results. When I walked into my interview the first time I'd worked there, even though Frank immediately made comments like, "Oh, I didn't know you'd be so small, and you sounded taller on the phone," he never made any indication it would impede my job, and I never let it, and always let me try a bit of every station. However, from the start, Satan mentioned he'd be having me mostly on table and office from then on, and even took me off night shifts. Frank let me know from the start that smallest uniform sizes would be swimming on me, and he was right. The shirt went to my knees and I had to tuck it in. The pants had to be hemmed 5 inches, and I had to buy my own shoes and belt because the provided ones didn't fit. He was understanding of this, even when my small size meant the shoes I was wearing were a pair of all-black non-slip child sneakers, because it was hard for me to find non-slip shoes in my size, and my belt was green. Because my waist was so small, the only belt I had that would fit was a fashion belt with holes along the entire length for one size fits all. Satan tried to make me wear shoes 2 sizes too big for me on the first day, insisting I needed to wear the uniform. He tried to make me wear the belt too, but my pants were literally falling off my body. There was just no way possible to use any belt in the building but my green one. Eventually, he had to just accept that I'd have to stay in the black shoes, but he insisted I needed to buy a sturdy black leather belt because it was part of the uniform. I'd already had to buy shoes for this job the first time I was hired, and considering the entire uniform was to be provided, I was a little sick of it and just told him I'd get to it when I had the money. Partway through the season, I'd done a bunch of office work above my station to prove myself to Satan and gotten his permission to take over watching early entrants before the baseball games. This was an area of the park closed off to anyone without special privileges like season ticket holders or certain events and ticket tiers. Even though my department had to send someone down to guard that area, scanning people's passes to make sure they could only go in if they were allowed, it was technically run by the game day security. This is where things get odd. To this day, I don't know why, but at one point a game day security guard came over and told me they were opening the early access point to everyone in the park a half an hour early. Now this wasn't actually uncommon, as just about any day with a small enough crowd they'd open it like that. The odd part of it is, it wasn't true. However, I had no way of knowing that and no reason to question it. I returned to the office and walked face first into a crap storm. Craphead, a random coworker of equal rank, was already ranting before I entered the room. I'm not one for confrontation and prefer to settle things as quickly and calmly as possible, so I wasn't actually triggered just yet, simply walking over to see what was wrong so we could sort this out. Now, when I got closer, and he was suddenly in my face, meanwhile this man is more than 6 feet tall. Yeah, anxiety started rising a bit. Craphead. Who told you you could leave early access? Me. I don't know. Craphead. You don't know? It wasn't me. It wasn't him. Asterisk gesturing to Satan asterisk. Who did it? No one. Me. Asterisk at the same time. Asterisk I don't know. I don't know. Craphead. You don't know? Oh, so there was someone? Asterisk said mockingly, and I just now realize he actually thinks I just left my post asterisk me. Yes. A game day came over and told me they were closing it early. Craphead. What game day? Was it a supervisor? If it wasn't a supervisor, you shouldn't have listened. Asterisk screaming in my face now, getting louder, then looks at the screen asterisk. Look, there's another one getting in. And another. And another. Oh, look. They're having a big old party at early access. Asterisk proceeds to start screaming at the top of his lungs directly in my face about how people spend good money on season tickets. Asterisk. Now this is the part where I broke down into shaking sobs and had to sprint to the bathroom. I'd like to say I made it to the toilet, but I did not. I try not to let it affect my work, but I actually have PTSD, anxiety, depression, and social anxiety from years of physical, mental, and emotional abuse from my stepmother, as well as abandonment issues and just a whole bunch of crap. My parents were just in general all messed up people who took advantage of me, however possible, and seriously screwed up my head. Because my issues were caused by abuse and not a traumatic experience, my triggers are a little different. Fireworks or even an armed gunman didn't trigger me, but I can't take someone screaming in my face. I was shaking and having trouble breathing, so ended up calling boyfriend to take me home. Satan tried calling me back on my radio, saying something about not making a scene and security officers needing to maintain a level of composure. Meanwhile, the 2 other co-workers who had been in the room during what happened were texting me trying to make sure I was all right, and just completely appalled at everything they had just witnessed, and were still witnessing. The next day, I was scheduled to work a night shift with Craphead, meaning we'd be the only 2 people in the entire building all night. Before that, I wanted to make it very clear that him yelling at me was not okay, and that mistakes should be dealt with calmly and by my boss, not by an equal co-worker screaming in my face. That said, I still had my size to consider, and was afraid he wouldn't take me seriously. I asked boyfriend if he could come in with me before my shift, but just to mediate if needed. We arrived 10 minutes early. When you first enter from the security door, it opens into a lobby. A window looks into the security office, and it is this window I approached to talk to Craphead. Boyfriend came in behind me, standing a few feet away. He wasn't anywhere near the window, and we never left the lobby. My shift hadn't started, and civilians were allowed in this area as it was actually where they would need to go if they needed something from the building at this time anyways. But here is how this went. Craphead. Asterisk looks up to see who walked in, sees boyfriend walking behind me and frowns. Asterisk. What are you doing here? Me? He's my boyfriend. Craphead. Asterisk eyes went wide. Asterisk get out. Me. What? No, Craphead, no, you, get out! Asterisk points to my boyfriend and the door asterisk. You think you're just gonna come in here like this? Me. Craphead, stop! He's just here so I can talk. Craphead, shut up! What the hell do you think you're doing bringing him in like this? Boyfriend. Hey, don't talk to her like that. Craphead. Oh, you wanna go? You wanna go? Let's go. Asterisk stands up and starts coming around to leave the office, which is a very long walk from the window to the door. Asterisk. Yeah, We were done with that bullcrap. Boyfriend and I were already almost at the door by the time he came out, yelling about how he was banned and never allowed inside the building again, for us to get out, etc. I sent my boss a long text recounting the events, then went home and got some sleep. The next day, I had an afternoon shift. I had already planned on talking to Satan, so it was a relief when I was called into his office. I didn't expect to get scolded. This man gave me a verbal warning for walking out on my shift, like I wasn't being screamed at to leave. When I pointed that out, he claimed Craphead was only telling boyfriend to leave, and about how he'd already gotten a text saying what happened before he got mine, and that's when it clicked. Craphead got to Satan about the incident first, so my recount didn't matter. He even tried acting like my boyfriend was actually banned. Despite the act, I'm part of the department that would handle that, so I know the proceedings and all the information that needs gathered. This man didn't care about the truth. He cared about sweeping any issue under any rug as fast as possible, and to him, I was just a ball of little issues. So, I sat there nodding my head like a good little soldier and waited. And then finally, after one more request to buy a black belt ASAP, he sent me out. I immediately went to the office, checked who was on night shift, seeing it was a coworker we will call Snake and someone else. Then asked the someone else if I could switch. They said yes, and my plan was set. That night, I told Snake he could take the first patrol. While he was gone, I used my security access to my full advantage, pulling up video evidence of both of Craphead's blow-ups. I used my phone to record copies of everything I needed, and thanks to all the office work I'd been doing, I knew exactly what way to mark the timeline of events according to our protocols for incidents. I wrote up all the reports myself, gathered my evidence, then left a note on Satan's desk. By the time Snake came back, I was completely done and ready to expose the truth and get justice. I went on my own first patrol, making sure to take plenty of pictures and video for myself to remember every inch of the park. Once again, I returned to the office and cycled with Snake, sending him on his patrol after we'd chatted for a minute. When he left, I noticed he's been using the office phone, which wasn't unusual or against the rules, but made me curious of a few things. When I went into the text messages from the previous night, sure enough, Craphead had contacted Satan from that phone. I was able to read exactly what had been sent and get a copy for HR. Finally, I checked the Facebook group chat Snake had left open. Now, while I wasn't in the habit of snooping on my coworkers, Snake was actually one of the few I'd considered a friend, and the same person who told me Frank was secretly just as much of a sexual harasser claimed Snake was as well, and he left it open on the work phone. Upon reading it, I found out that not only was Snake just as bad as Frank and the guy who was fired, but he'd been in the group chat talking about all night with one of our other co-workers and our old boss about me and what they'd like to do to me if they had me to themselves all night. I quickly took screenshots, even though it was his private Facebook. Because he was doing it on the work phone, I figured he'd still get in trouble, sent them to myself, then deleted the evidence. I went on my last patrol that night, just enjoying a leisurely stroll around the park throughout the sunrise. When my shift ended, I left a big "I quit" in swirly writing on the whiteboard, then left. I stopped by HR to drop off the reports, having already sent the email with the videos, screenshots, and recount to people even above Satan. Satan tried acting to everyone like I was just a dramatic troublemaker, and Craphead did nothing wrong. But less than a week later, Craphead was fired, along with Snake and the other co-worker. I was apparently right about them still getting in trouble. With 4 people suddenly out of a department that was already understaffed, Satan started to struggle. To make matters worse, while he still had a few good workers, the ones that were gone were honestly of the best, even Craphead. He still has his job, but the main source of my grief got fired anyways, and I've heard enough of the struggles Satan's gone through to know it was revenge enough. Besides, I got a couple bonus revenges, and trust men less than ever.